What's good? Cyrus pop up live. I go by Osiris. This is Middle MAGA. I'm going to talk about decoding the madness through Timcast. This episode is kind of brought to you in a way through Timcast. Had Rich Barris on yesterday, the great pollster. While I'm not that interested in the art of polling, he is a very smart dude, and I watch his polls. And he actually testified in Arizona. If you remember, we covered that. But it was a great episode, decoding. I listened to a lot of this stuff, a lot of these podcasts, hours and hours of these things. And from the podcasts I listened to, one of the best, obviously, is Tim, Ian, Phil, and yesterday was Rich. Toy Mafia, thank you as always. Yo, appreciate you stopping by. Amber Lance, what is this? Oh, hey. I thought it was a spam at first. I was like, did I put spam on there? I don't know if anybody saw that. Somebody got me with a screen name the other day. I'm not gonna say which live it was. You're gonna have to dig through hours of footage to find it. But remember, there was a dude that got tricked by saying the N-word with the hard ER because of someone's screen name. Someone got me, not with that, but with something else a while back. But right before I went live, I saw in the Discord. I'm going to put a link to the Discord here. The Discord has been energizing me. I really appreciate everybody chatting in there. I'm watching everything. I can't comment on everything, but I'm in there a lot. Here's a link to the Discord in the chat right now, and I bring that up because right before I went live, this is not on the topic of what I planned. Right before I went live, I saw this, and we were talking about it in here. Rasputin put in here a tweet. And I wanted to show this to give Rasputin credit, and this was a very interesting topic. It does go with what I want to talk about today. I'll just kick it off because I just saw this from the homie Myth Informed, who was banned on X, got brought back on, and I like this to highlight this. Well, you see what these Black Imams are into, what they do. Yep, I'm already onto the Black Imams right now, and here's Myth Informed. Things that white families do. So you don't need to, this is going to go along with Tim Scott being based. It's perfect along to the topic that I want to talk about today. Things that white families do, like reading to their children. Woke 12 through K teacher is opposed to schools promoting positive activities like families reading to kids because that's what white people do. I said a while back, this critical race theory, religion, whatever you want to call it, it does remind me of, because I remember that people used to say that I talked when I was a kid, and I don't know what was in me. I never cared what they said. I don't know. It's got to be parents' upbringing. So they would say, you sound like you talk like a white person. And this would be like middle school. I'd be like, what the hell? I didn't say anything. I wasn't confrontational. I was just like, okay. I didn't even really reply a lot of times. I'm like, okay, y'all. It's like, I didn't know what was fully happening, but it never stopped me from being me. I don't know why. Yeah, I guess it's just genetics, parents. And they would say that, and I'd be like, this is so weird. And they would say stuff like, hey, they would show like a magazine, like an Essence magazine, and it'd be some black actress or something like that. And I'd be like, I don't know who that is. And they'd make fun of me because I didn't know who it was. I'm like, are they supposed to be important? Like, I don't, do you know how to add? I wasn't like that back then, but I went unfazed. But this is the academic way of saying you're white if you try to get up out of this. Or if you want reparations, you're black as hell. But if you want to read to your children, that's whiteness. She thinks that they should instead be focused on oppressive and racist policies. I'm going to talk about the history. I'm going to go back to World War II. And when we just saw in Canada, this is a different country, but in Canada, standing up, applauding, talking about Russia in 1940. You sound like a damn idiot. You don't even know what you're talking about. Russia in 1940. What the hell are you talking about? And they want you to focus on something else. They don't want you to focus on math. They don't want to focus on reading. They want you to focus on this.
Article shows that with evaded racism, the blame is usually placed on students of color and families for academic struggles because of their cultural practices or lifestyle or socioeconomic status. Instead of looking at shifts in the oppressive or racist policies or structures, they address these challenges, encouraging students to change their behavior or families to do more things that more like white families do, like reading to their children or adopting like a growth mindset and kind of like
Oh my God.
just changing their own mindset to fit the school culture mindset.
And these black imams would have they don't look at this, they don't know about it. You show it to them, they don't care. They have more heat for me than they do for this. If you didn't hear, she literally said, do things like white, and she got a little uncomfortable because she knows how bad that sounds. But you could see the shifting, the body language, and she literally said, do things like white people, like read to their children.
To do more things that more like white families do, like reading to their children or adopting like
What is new racism? Evaded racism. They're really good with their vocabulary, the linguistics of this. Anti-racist racism. Everyday racism, characterized as subtle and covert, also referred to as a discursive strategy. Evaded. Blame is on students of color and their families for academic struggles. Who else is going to be blamed for academic struggles? Now, you want to challenge your area to do better, but ultimately it's on me as a parent. Shift in behavior as solution. Example, read more to children. Adopting a growth mindset. This is what they're labeling as racist. Evades, examining changing structures or policies that systematically fail students of color. So you see the policy, you see this failing students of color or whoever else, that's a problem. Emphasis on achievement gap and short-term solutions, promoting culturally responsive pedagogy without analysis of racism. So basically saying critical race theory is you view everything through the lens of being racist. So if you look at this without that, then you're racist. Also called deficit discourse, a discursive strategy for policymaking and evading the topic of racism, labeling students at risk. That's what it is. It's perfect for, and Rasputin on the Discord would have had no idea what my topic for today was. James Lindsay said, they're just trying to make anything that builds healthy societies and children and undermine it with the contrived race Marxist smear white. So thank you, Rasputin. Would have had no idea that fits right in the topic of Tim Scott. And I lost it in the debate. Bodie says they want to label everything that's positive white so they can say that it's a bad thing. That's exactly what James Lindsay said. And thank you, Rasputin. And I lost this I believe this was from the debate. I streamed the whole debate, so I watched the debate. I don't know, maybe I was laughing at the duck comment. I don't know what happened. We were in the chat chatting during the debate. I was actively listening for, I think, all of it, but that's why sometimes it's good to review. I believe this came from the debate. I think sometimes when they bring up slavery, I just tune out. Like Tim Scott, he's like a black Mike Pence. I used to like him. You can kind of see why I used to like him with this quote, this little piece I'm going to show here, but I don't like him anymore. He's a corporate shill. He's a political enemy of mine. But if somebody's base, I'm going to say where they're right. I'm not going to lie about it. In a debate, so if you don't know what happened, in a debate, Tim Scott, he flat out said this. I have a clip here for you. Let me get that clip ready so I can go to it right after I'm done setting the scene of the context of what this clip is. Aaron Rupar, the terrible journalist, he's become a joke in and of himself. And what happened is Tim Scott, in this clip you're going to hear, Tim Scott argued that black families have endured numerous hardships throughout history, such as slavery, poll taxes, and discriminatory laws. However, He contends that the most damaging obstacle was President Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society programs. According to Scott, these welfare initiatives effectively removed the Black father from households by offering financial incentives. And this is beyond Black. They're the ones that he's bringing up, Black community, all that, but whatever. It's just in general. And there's a lot of white people on welfare too. And offering these financial incentives, thereby undermining the family structure. Just like that clip Rasputin gave to us in the Discord. Undermining family value. They did it specifically with Black people because they want to keep them on that plantation. Without them, it all falls apart. To provide context, and I say them because I don't associate whatever that group is, I don't associate with it. To provide context, the Great Society was a set of domestic programs launched by President Lyndon B. Johnson in the 1960s. Let me play the clip here, and then I'll go on from there.
Here's the challenge, though. Black families survived slavery. We survived poll taxes and literacy tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the laws of our country. What was hard to survive was Johnson's Great Society, where they decided to put money, where they decided to take the Black father out of the household to get a check in the mail, and you can now measure that in unemployment, in crime, in devastation. If you want to reach free, here's the challenge.
Amen.
Though. Black families survive.
We're going to hear that one more once, maybe more than one more once. What a great moment from Tim Scott here.
Here's the challenge, though. Black families survived slavery. We survived poll taxes and literacy tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the laws of our country. What was hard to survive was Johnson's Great Society, where they decided to put money, where they decided to take the Black father out of the household to get a check in the mail, and you can now measure that in unemployment, in crime, in devastation. If you want to reach free, here's the challenge, though.
So that's the clip there. It's so good.
We survived poll taxes and
man, it's so good. That was by far the best moment that I remember from the debate. I didn't even remember. I didn't even know about it until Rupar. Thank you, Rupar. Rupar thought it was some type of own, I think. But I think Rupar knew that there was something there, because you can notice Rupar tweeted this and said, Tim Scott says Johnson's Great Society was harder to survive than slavery. Didn't have any commentary underneath it. He doesn't want to get into that conversation. I know he's not stupid. He's just doing what he has to do. That will be a part of this live. Citizens doing what they feel like they have to do to adhere to whoever's controlling all this out here. They know what they have to do and say to adhere to that. And they're like an army. They're the army. So somebody that I go back and forth with on X very often said, I said, no lies detected. Jeff, what's his name? Damn, why do I always keep forgetting his name? But I saw this through the libertarian dude, and he obviously didn't. I don't know why he thought it was a bad quote. I'd love to talk to him about that. But then this person, so I said no lies detected. This person, Pim Tool, who is obviously not a Tim Pool fan, but we go back and forth, and I think there's good discussion there. Lots of lies detected by Pim Tool. Getting a welfare payment is in fact better than having the same amount of legal rights as livestock. So you see how we have the quote, I've played it twice. Tim Scott did not say anything about slavery being better. I need you to listen closely. I know you're not very bright, and I know that you are, and you know who I'm talking about, not you in the chat. I know that you all that have the boot in your mouth, that you want to twist everything into the narrative you know it's supposed to fit in, even if you know that's wrong, even if you can't even articulate it. But listen closely. He didn't say that slavery was better. I need you to hear. Listen up, listen up.
Here's the challenge, though. Black families survived slavery. We survived poll taxes and literacy tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the laws of our country. What was hard to survive was Johnson's Great Society, where they decided.
Notice he used the word survive. He used it twice in there. He obviously didn't say slavery was better. And these are all subjective terms, but if we are going to talk about it, let's be intellectually honest. That ain't what he said. And Jairus says, I like Tim Scott, and I really loved the Lyndon B. Johnson point. Also, LBJ said publicly, we'll have those ends voting for us for the next 200 years. That is alleged from a book. I kind of been looking at that quote. I don't have an exact thing to confirm that he said that, but if you read about Lyndon B. Johnson, he was a savage politician, very savvy, very bright, very not like he wasn't like Trump where he was like interesting to listen to, but very, very, very good at the game of politics. That's how he positioned himself after JFK got assassinated. But when you look at it, he was there to be, not that he was a part of it, but he put himself in that position to be there, a heartbeat. Same with Kamala Harris. You can say whatever you want about Kamala Harris. She's there just in case the big guy, they got 10%, just in case something happens down those stairs. She's right there. And but I can't confirm that he said that quote, but I believe he said that quote. According to, I forgot the name of the book, he said that quote. And it's true. It's true. He said, I'll have those ends voting for us for the next 200 years. And it's a perfect quote to go with. That's basically what Tim Scott's saying. Replace the father, move the father figure out of the house. You get a check mailed to you. You get disincentivized to bring the father back in the house. Because if you get a job that's just a little bit above, why would you go work when you're not making that much more than when the government was breaking you off? And that's the point that he was making. So I went down here and I replied, and I said, he says the Great Society was harder to survive than slavery. Under slaves could, this is a Pim tool. I thought, where's mine? Okay, here is it. Here is mine. That's not what Tim Scott said. You're factually incorrect. We have a video right here and you still can't get the take right. Try again. These people just lie, manipulate, and twist anything. Then Pim Tool replies, he says the Great Society was harder to survive than slavery. Now I got you in the legitimate world. I'm not talking to you if you're going to use words that he didn't say. Under slavery, slaves could be beaten, raped, or killed with no legal consequence. Okay? Not so under the Great Society. Is that true? Go look in Google. I replied to this, I believe. And so I first said, good. You realize that that's different than saying slavery was better, right? Usually more survivable would be considered better. No, that's not the same thing. That's not the same thing. But regardless, I think it's a ridiculous statement, okay? Even if all the worst criticisms of the Great Society are true, slavery was objectively harder to survive. What measurement are you using for that? I don't know about that. I think it's a legit conversation. Of course it's different to say that slavery was better when he really said it was easier to survive. The goal of slavery was not to kill slaves. So I'm not being pro-slavery. Let's have a real honest discussion about it. The goal of slavery was to make somebody do work for you. If they're not alive and you paid a lot of money for them and to care for them and all of that, you don't want them unlived. Now, you might whip, you might do a lot of stuff to keep everybody in bay. You might take a couple of them and make them an example by whips, whatever else, to say, hey, y'all don't act up. Yeah, you can do that, but you're not trying to unlive what you spent a lot of money for. So that by itself, you got to think. Go ahead and Google deaths in any major city from the past weekend and tell me what the results are. Go Google Chicago, go Google New York, go Google Atlanta, go Google any of these cities and tell me what the deaths look like. Do you want to move to any of these cities? So you've got people who I can guarantee don't live in these areas. I don't live in it, and I'm very happy about that. And I hope anybody in those areas can try to get the hell up out of there because you're on a plantation. The same people who support welfare don't believe there's a fatherless problem. I started the live with, if you read to your kids, that's whiteness. The same people who support welfare are the ones telling you that you're white if you read to your children. Okay, then I'll be white. I'm good with that. I don't care what your words have no meaning to me. But no, that's the same people selling that to you. I actually brought down because I saw the reading to the kids, and I actually let me step aside from this topic for a second. This is not any type of paid promotion. I'll talk to you about that in a second. But I love these books. Anybody subscribe to Brave Books? Get them every month. This one was written by General Michael Flynn. And it's a great one about leadership. And I got the Kevin Sorbo one. Kevin Sorbo was just on Timcast. So they got him on going on Timcast to kind of promote the books a little bit. I think they could promote them harder. And I love these books. You know why I got these books? One time I went to the library. I talked to Deb Philman about this maybe 2 years ago, year and a half ago when I was on her show. She's great, talks about education. And I told her, and she knew which book I was talking about. I've talked about this before. I went to the library. When we grew up at the library, you could close your eyes and pick a book and you find a good book. I went to the library. This was about 2 years ago, whatever, after the pandemic. My kids like penguins. I'm like, okay. They brought me the book. I kind of looked at it. I was like, okay, you like penguins? We'll read it. Come home. The book is about, I think it's about a three penguin parent household. So I'm reading the book and I'm like, where is this going? The book, I think it was something like, two, I don't even remember exactly. I think it was something like two daddies and a mommy with the penguin. It was something, and in the middle of reading the book, I'm kind of like, and then I'm like, and then I changed the subject when I talk, like, let's take a break, change the subject. I closed the book and I slid it underneath the dresser. And I took a different book out. I was like, oh, yeah, we haven't read this one in a while. And after that, I went to my wife and I said, do you see what the hell this book was about? This penguin book is about like and that's fine if you want to have a conversation, but I didn't want to get into all that. I wasn't looking for a two-daddy household penguin book for my kid. We're just trying to read a book so we can learn the words and have a story. And at that moment, I told my wife, and I was the one that brought that one home. She brought home a questionable one time too. It wasn't as bad, but that one was about social justice. It was about people that ran up into a CEO's office because of climate change. I was like, no. And so I told her, these books, when they bring it to us in the library, they got to be vetted, period. And if we make a mistake, that's fine. I don't want to hear anything. I'm taking that book out and I'm taking it right back immediately. And so right after that, I think I saw them on Timcast, the Brave book. No, actually, it was Jack Posavec was promoting it. Maybe he had written one. I forget, one of the early ones. And then Ashley St. Clair wrote the first one that we got, The Elephants Are Not Birds. Great book. And been subscribed ever since. I actually reached out to them, believe it or not. I emailed them and said, hey, I'll sell. I love your product. I love your books. I'll promote it on the channel. We can work something out. It's kind of funny, though. The show's a little too spicy for that now. We can't promote children's books and the greatness of Kevin Sorbo or General Flynn, and then in the next segment talk about Nancy Pelosi's titties. Probably doesn't work. But I can still give them a shout out without paid, just because I really do like them. So going back to the issue at hand here. So you see the problem here. You've got people who are in a perpetual cycle begging for the government assistance. They're begging on the corner for reparations like a bum on the corner. They're begging for more welfare like a bum on the corner. They're begging for guaranteed home and shelter. Basically, any necessity, they're begging to the government like the government is God. That's what Mike Scott is. Mike, that's what, because I always conflate him with a black Mike Pence. He's not as bad as a black Mike Pence, but he's still bad. He's the Ukraine money guy. He's a corporate guy. But Tim Scott, that's what he's saying. You can disagree if you want, but do not come to me and act like there is not legitimacy to this argument. So that's Tim Scott. If you don't know we can go into the Great Society even a little bit more, because I kind of did a little kind of breakdown of it. So the Great Society there was some good things, I think, with the Great Society. It covered a lot of different aspects as far as Medicare, Medicaid were part of it. But the part that Tim Scott is really talking about is the food stamps, SNAP, and its role that they're supposed to be combating hunger, public housing. These programs lead to dependency. That's what he's talking about from Lyndon Johnson. So that's, I really liked that moment from Tim Scott, and I'm mad that I missed it. It's kind of tough when you're streaming. I probably would have if I was just focused on myself, but it's all good. I mean, it's easy to kind of lose track of the positive moments, and the biggest thing that came out of the debate was the duck stuff. Chris Christie was right, though. Why? And I don't know if I want to say right, but nothing went more viral during that debate than the Donald Duck comment from Chris Christie. So it was actually good. The Donald Duck comment from Chris Christie actually worked out to his benefit, because when you look at the debate, what do you remember? Tell me something that Ron DeSantis said that you remember. Tell me something that Nikki Scott said that you remember during the debate. I didn't even remember Tim Scott had said that. Everybody was talking about, it was trending on Gab and everywhere, the Donald Duck comment. If you didn't hear the Donald Duck comment, this is Chris Christie in one of his worst moments, but I'm going to tell you why this was good. This is one of his worst moments ever in a debate. He's a very good debate person, but he had a bad moment here. He had this can line, and it did work, though. It's still good.
And I want to look at that camera right now and tell you, Donald, I know you're watching. You can't help yourself. I know you're watching, okay? And you're not here tonight, not because of polls and not because of your indictments. You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on the stage and defending your record. You're ducking these things. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
All right.
And I want to look at that camera right now.
The audience, I was dying. I was done for about 5 minutes. I was on mute. I couldn't breathe because he had done a good job of leading up to it. I was like, okay, finally. DeSantis had tried to go at Trump, and it was just so the holier than thou type. And it was better than what he did before, but Chris Christie just does it off the cuff better, except for that line at the end. But he had got me. I was like, oh, here comes Chris. Here comes Chris Christie.
I want to look at that camera.
He's going to call him a pussy. Here comes Chris Christie.
Right now and tell you, Donald, I know you're watching.
He was right here, too. He's like, Donald, I know, well, Donald was at the other, but he's watching it back, or he knows what's going on.
You can't help yourself.
And even if he wasn't watching, it was just a good line to start it. You can't help yourself.
I know you're watching.
That's why everybody laughed. Everybody knew it was true. So I'm like, oh, here comes Chris Christie. Here's his moment.
Okay? And you're not here tonight, not because of polls and not because of your indictments.
I agree completely. It has nothing to, well, the polls give him an excuse, but that's at its core. That's not why he's ducking these debates. Agree again.
Here tonight, not because of polls and not
Preach.
because of your indictments.
Preach.
You're not here tonight because you're afraid
Preach.
of being on the stage and defending your record.
Absolutely, that's true. There's no lies here. So you can tell. I'm like, I was like, oh, here we go.
You're ducking these things. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep doing that.
See, I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go. Chris Christie gonna get it out on him. Not that I'm a Chris Christie fan. I want to hear these politicians work for us. We don't work for them. So I don't care who it is from anyone running. If it's Cornel West, if it's Chris Christie, I'm trying to think of people who are only running. RFK, Vivek, I don't care. You could all get wrecked. You work for us. So I'm like, okay, let's get it going. Chris Christie, you got it. And he's leading up for the one-liner. Let's
keep
go.
Doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
And then even the announcer's like, all right, bro. He knows. I don't know if he did the F on purpose. He's so good. He had to know. He might have done that on purpose. He might have had the prepared, because I look through and I run stuff off and like, what does this sound like? If I say this, and I think he knew that was corny. I might actually give him credit. I think he did that on purpose. I really do. He's smart. He knows that was a stupid line. He was like, that might work though.
What's going to happen? You keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
All right.
The moderator is like, all right, bro. That didn't work. Even the moderator is like, oh, okay, that's not what we want tonight. That's not gonna work for me. And then the whole crowd just goes, oh. It wasn't even good as a dad joke. So it's the classic A or an F. That's what I want to talk about with this moment. Nothing went more viral than that debate, and Chris Christie, he followed it up with, I think this is a good meme. People might disagree. That's fine. He just did a picture, looks like Mid-Journey, Chris Christie, at real Donald Trump. Got that fool looking like Donald Duck with the hair. Base, no lies detected. Great meme. Not gonna lie. After that F moment, lean into it. Mike has bad knees. Long time no see. Oh, yeah, you missed that part? Somebody said there was, they literally said that, Mike. It's in the beginning of the live. You can go back and then or watch it later. I'm going to have to clip that up. It's in the Discord. You can go over to our Discord. So Rasputin in the Discord posted it. Literally, I'm not trying to exaggerate or anything like that. Literally said, it's white to read to your kids. It's all out in the open. The mask is off, and I love it, man. They revealing themselves. I ain't saying he is a vote rigger. Be careful with that hard ER. Ray Studios. We got to do a show tonight right before the shutdown. We'll see how I feel tonight. Since I'm going now, I might not do tonight. We'll see how I feel. I love going out. I mean, I just don't have the energy, so it's tough. But I'll fight through it, man. I'll text you, Ray. But I think this is based Donald Trump and then own the moment. So I was like, hey, Chris Christie, not going to lie, this is a good meme. He had a terrible moment at the debate, but he's doing a good job trying to salvage it. So he has a picture of a big face of Donald Trump, but it looks like Donald Duck. And I love AI. I mean, it's a weapon. We all can use it. I just love it, man. Anybody could it makes it easier for anyone to be a memester. Because before AI, who could do that? I couldn't do that. You would have to be a graphics type of person to do. I couldn't do anything that looked close to that. You could do a goofy, lame Photoshop or something, which could be funny too. But that's it. And of course, the memesters will strike back, though. That's why I like a good challenge. The memesters came back with, here's Chris Christie. He looks like they put a pig on his face and like a Porky Pig type face that looks kind of realistic on Chris Christie. So the memesters will strike back. They're not going to have that. So I fully support that. But the lesson here is to get an A or an F. And the legendary Jim Rome would agree. Let's take a trip.
Topping the Sports Night rundown.
Back in time to Sports Center. Years ago. I don't even know what this is. Stuart Scott, rest in peace.
A heated exchange on Wednesday's edition of Talk 2.
And that's, I Want to Kiss You, Susie. I forgot. What's her name? Remember when Namath was drunk on the sideline? There he is. Look at them. It looks like this was like the 1930s or something. It was back when things were a lot different. But this is going to be a clip of Jim Rome, completely out of politics. But this is an example of an A or an F. Jim Rome got an F here, but it blew him up.
Topping the Sports Night rundown, a heated exchange on Wednesday's edition of Talk 2 that has everyone talking. Host Jim Rome and Saints quarterback Jim Everett wound up rolling off the stage. When athlete and host step over the line, the result is as follows.
All right, there it is, 1989, his biggest game as a pro quarterback with the LA Rams. Team was trailing 17-3. He took them all the way back, 2017, 454 yards passing. And incredibly enough, he is now playing for that team that he lit up. I'm talking about the new Orleans Saints quarterback, Jim Everett. There's the game winner right there. All right, that was then, and this is now. He's now a member of the Saints. Jim, good to have you on the show.
Good to be here, Jim. Thank you.
So I'm going to set the scene here. That's Jim Everett, who was an average to above average quarterback back in the day. And Jim Rome is a sports commentator. He's the king of smack, the best smack talker of all time. And he would call Jim Everett Chris Everett. I forgot exactly why, because it was bitch made, and so I forgot what the controversy was. That's not important. For whatever reason, he had the there was some type of controversy, and he got the label of kind of being bitch made. So he called him Chris, which was the name of his wife, in like calling him like Chrissy Everett, the woman tennis player. Like he's just calling him Chris as a woman, not as a guy. And to his face, they sit down. Jim Everett, understandably, is like, okay, bro, you've been calling me Chris. What's up with that?
On the show.
Good to be here, Jim. Thank you.
Check that. Chris Everett. Good to have you on the show.
You know what? You've been calling me that for about the last 5 years.
About 2 years, actually, Chris.
Well, hey, you know what? Let me say one thing. In that game, how many sacks did I have that we came back and won?
How many sacks did you have?
How many sacks?
Well, see, but this was back in 1989.
Okay, that was
See,
about
you may
six.
have even been Jim Everett back there, but somewhere along the way, Jim, you ceased being Jim and you became Chris.
Well, let me tell you a little secret. That, we're sitting here right now, and if you guys want to take a station break, you can. But if you call me Chris Everett to my face one more time...
I already did it twice.
You call it one more time, we better take a station break.
Well, it's a 5-minute segment, our 5-segment show. We got a long way to go.
Well, we do.
We got a long way to go.
We do.
I'll get a couple segments out of
Well,
you
it's
before.
good to be here with you, though.
Well, it's good to see you,
because
too.
you've been talking like this behind my back for a long
But
time.
now I said it right here.
Right, exactly.
Well, we got no problem
Well,
with that.
I think that you probably won't say it again.
I bet I do.
Okay.
Chris?
And he goes ahead and wrecks him. Not too much.
After cutting away and going to 15 minutes of standby programming, Jim Rome returned live with his explanation.
All right, welcome back. This is Talk 2. I'm Jim Rome. I had to go ruin my jacket. Perfectly good jacket. Anyway, it's too bad you had to see that. We feel that was a pretty unfortunate incident. That was New Orleans Saints quarterback Jim Everett. But I've got to say, the fact of the matter is, I'm going to stand by the smack. I've called him Chris on the show before he got here, and I'm going to call him Chris to his face. It's unfortunate because we had a very nice interview planned. We wanted to talk about the Ram years.
Come on, Jim.
The NFC Championship game of 1989, and before that, even his college years. It's too bad. We had a very nice interview that we wanted to do, but I'm going to stand by the smack, and for whatever reason, he didn't want to hear it. So again, that's
For whatever reason, you're basically calling him a bitch to his face.
unfortunate. We're sorry you had to see that, but we're going to keep coming after it on Talk 2.
Late Wednesday night, Everett arrived home in Las Vegas, where he was asked for his take on the situation.
I was backed up into a corner like a caged animal. I heard reports that he's been name-calling me, and just to put me in that type of situation when I'm trying to accommodate his show, I think was totally uncalled for. He told me he was going to bring something up in that neighborhood, but I had no idea that, he was going to put his foot on it and just keep stepping it down my throat. He's the one who came up with that term. My wife has that name, and I don't think he's referring to my wife. But I just didn't expect to get that type of treatment from that type of a quality station.
So that's it. It's kind of eerie seeing Stuart Scott. We used to watch SportsCenter, and now it's just a hot mess of just racial trash. And back then it was really good. It was a good channel. It was in its infancy there. And yeah, I'll give a heads up if I just go when I can. My wife is doing something, so I'm like, I got to take the kids out though. Talking about fatherless problem. My 7-year-old has football tomorrow, and he's not catching the ball like I want to. So I'm like, we're gonna have to go out to the park. Before we go to the park, let me get this stuff off my chest. So when I'm at the park, I don't have to any of this in my head, and we get that football throw and go deep. I want you to go get that ball. I'm not gonna be out here talking about a fatherless problem, and my 7-year-old can't catch a deep ball. Let's get that fixed. So I'll be out here in a second. But so I just fit the lives in when I can. But my point with that is that was one of the first viral moments. That thing went viral for what viral was during that time. And Jim Rome knew what he was doing. And he crossed the line. Jim Rome knows he crossed the line. He admitted that later on. If I call somebody smack and I have a conversation with them, I'm not going to be disrespecting them to their face. If they want to ask about it, I had a conversation with Kid Gravity. He was talking trash about me, and I'm like, it's all good. He wasn't, and when we went on the live, I wasn't talking trash about him. I never did, but he wasn't talking trash about me. We had a good discussion a while back. I think I linked it up on this channel, Kid Gravity, about the slavery stuff of the reparations, and so we don't need to be on some stuff like that. That's bitch made by Jim Rome. He's great, but that was a bad moment. But it was an F. And Jim says you get an A or an F. And the problem with Ron DeSantis is he's been hanging out in the middle. I'm going to get back to the theme of this whole thing in a second, but that transitions it to Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis is in no man's land. He doesn't get A's and he doesn't get F's. He gets solid C's pretty much across the board. His content is better than a C, but his delivery and ability to cut through the noise is a C at best. That's generous. And he was on with Bill Maher, and I think this is better. So for you DeSantis supporters, I got good news for you. He's doing a little something here. This is better. He had some good moments on with Bill Maher, and they were talking about the pandemic.
Work, but that's driven by ideology. So it's not just we're having just a philosophical debate. I think woke ideology has corrupted institutions. No. I think it's corrupted things like the CDC.
And I like it when he talks about the woke and then he got to connect it to something. And the pandemic's your strongest thing. So you can't just talk about woke. You got to connect it to something. Let me bring it back and I'll stay out the way.
The philosophical debate, I think woke ideology has corrupted institutions. No. I think it's corrupted things like the CDC with how they handled COVID with the nonsense that they did. So it's a broader issue than just a philosophical fight.
You keep wanting to get back to that. And I don't blame you because you're right. We're on the same page there. And I think it's unfair what they did to you because you did handle it better. You did handle it better. You were right. You were like, let's target the people, protect the people who are most vulnerable, and everybody else can go on with their lives a little better. You open schools soon.
And sometimes it's better to break it up for the copyright stuff because sometimes they get sensitive about this. Props to Bill Maher for acknowledging that.
And a lot of the stuff that's come in, the information we have after now, we've had a few years to look at it, you were more right. And they won't give you credit for that.
Well, it's not about credit for me, though. It's not about credit for me. It's about, it's about them admitting that they were wrong. Because they are setting us up. If this happened again, they would repeat the same playbook all over again.
Very good. And I want you, DeSantis, at this moment to say that disqualifies Donald Trump from president. Period. I am not in the mood since the pandemic to have somebody running for president who is wrong on the pandemic. That ain't happening. I don't care who it is. How could you be wrong or shy away from this? I need you to go full blown. So Donald Trump had some more stuff to say about DeSantis. I'm tired of that. You didn't go to the debate. I don't want to hear you talking about Ron DeSantis. You had a chance to say it to his face like Jim Rome did to Jim Everett. I need you to go head on the pandemic. And DeSantis, you need to link this in. Donald Trump, come on, people. You had masks on your 2-year-olds. You had this Operation Warp Speed that Donald Trump has not broken down what was good, what went well, what was bad, what you wouldn't do again. Hasn't gone at Fauci sufficiently as in an efficient, sufficient manner where you're calling him names or doing all that. I need you to do more. Ron DeSantis, excellent moment here.
And if we don't have accountability, that's what's going to happen. So I'll bring accountability so it never happens in our country again.
Now, I don't know if I totally believe that. I'm not voting for Ron DeSantis myself. If just to be clear, I'm not voting for either one of them. But this is a good moment for him.
The New York,
and he looks better too. Just look at his demeanor. He looks better. Do more of these. Why are you hiding? The more you do, the better you do. He went on with Russell Brand. That was virtual. Do more of these in person. Go on The View. There's no risk. What's the risk of going on The View? These cackling hens. You're going to look like a boss. They challenged you to go on The View and you said no. Do the debate with Newsom. Do anything. I need you to work harder. Vivek is everywhere. I can't go anywhere without seeing that dude. I need you to work harder. And look at this. This is a good moment. Look at his face. That's not bad. A lot of time his face looks bad. He looks natural. He looks kind of relaxed. He looks relatable.
Headline was, but it was basically Ron DeSantis fucked up the pandemic. And then, like, at the very end, it says Florida's death rate overall was better than the national average. Now, if you're going to do an article...
And he did the laugh, and the laugh didn't even look awkward there. This is his best moment to me. This is his best moment right here. I did watch this. I think this is his best moment. I'm going to do a full breakdown of this. He needs to do more of this.
Better than the national average. Now, if you're going to do an article, about Florida and the pandemic, shouldn't that be the lead? Shouldn't that be the? I mean, talk about
Shouldn't it be
daring
that
the
we're
lead?
the #1 state for in-migration? I mean, if we did so bad, people would have been leaving Florida. People are coming, wealth's moving into the state. Our economy's done better than any other large state. And education, we're now ranked, I think, in the top 5 on most metrics in education now. That wasn't true when I was a kid growing up in Florida. So we did it right, but what we did is we understood you can't stop society because of one respiratory virus.
What a great moment. You got clips galore from it. There's multiple clips going around on it. Just solid all around for DeSantis there.
She's a fat pig.
Here is the episode of Timcast from yesterday. And they did such an amazing job of breaking down, decoding the madness of our society. This goes along with the Tim Scott stuff and everything else. I'm going to go. This was Rich Barris on there with them, Phil, Ian, Tim. And the part that I want to start with is where Phil had a great moment. I marked it about 35 minutes in. He breaks down. Let me see if I can see his face. 35 minutes in, Phil, right here probably. Phil breaks down kind of the what's happening in our country, and they just do it in such a great way. I hope Scott Adams goes on the show at some point.
Not for the internet. So I want to make sure people understand that bad things happen, and you need to balance is this a one-off of Portland being a crazy bleeding Kansas type state? Or is it really as bad? Well, look, Scott Adams says there's a good chance he'll be dead within the year. Okay, dude. Yeah, it's been 3 years since Biden got elected. We're all here. We're all still working. So I'll say something similar to Mike Cernovich. I do think alarm is warranted, but perhaps a bit aggressive, gentlemen. Perhaps a bit aggressive, right?
Yeah, for sure. The way he phrased it too, like I don't have the tweet in front of me anymore, but saying you are going to, like, talking to me, saying we are, like, don't pull me into your.
So what's the context here is Mike Cernovich had a tweet that said basically, I hope you all realize if Trump doesn't win, that all the dissidents, basically conservative, the big names, they'll start with the big names like him, maybe Tim and them, you'll be in the gulag, basically.
Your little muck there, Mike.
And Ian's off here, but it's a great discussion still. Ian's off here. Yeah, it includes you, so Phil's going to jump in. I want to just give the context, otherwise you don't know what's going on.
I get what you're saying, but I'm not part of your group there.
No, but they go after you first.
It doesn't. Yeah, don't.
So you are part of the group, Ian. This is the topic we talk about. If you don't have the boot in your mouth and you're not licking it, you are MAGA. You're the outsider. You're the dissident. It doesn't matter if you're populist left. It doesn't matter if you're hippie left like Ian or whatever, based hippie left. There's no diss. Ian's one of my favorite. Ian just doesn't understand. Ian, you are considered MAGA. You are considered a domestic terrorist. That's where you are right now. He doesn't realize that, so Phil will jump in and help him out.
Try and scare me into making a point and get me to follow you. It's junk.
I think that the point really is because of the way that the left has framed the quote unquote sides, anyone that's not on their team is somehow on the other team. It's the basket of deplorables comment that Clinton made. If you do not fall in line and if you have the wrong politics, and that doesn't mean Trump's politics, that means not their politics, then you are on the outside and you are just as liable to be thrown into the group of the bad guys as anyone else is. It doesn't matter if you're a MAGA person or you're like one of the free staters up in New Hampshire that are libertarians or whatever. If you're not on board with their project, then you have the wrong politics. There is the thing about political correctness is there is the correct politics, and that means everything else that is not that is incorrect. So it doesn't matter what your politics are. All that matters is your politics are not theirs. So you don't get to walk away from it.
In a revolutionary period, a communist revolution.
And then Tim goes on, and Tim's comment here is just excellent too. I'll let it go a little bit more because Tim just took it. He was like, okay, I see where you're going, Phil. And then I don't know how Tim's like an encyclopedia. He has all this stuff in his head, and he just takes it on to even like a higher level discussion of it.
Revolutionary period. It is not the revolutionaries who are killed first. That's after the revolution, they begin purging revolutionaries. So in terms of if we are undergoing something akin to what Cernovich and Scott Adams have described, so to understand the context, using this room as an example, Ian, you are their first target. You are a collaborator, and you're
even worse. Like if you're black, because you're supposed to be on the plantation, if you are formally left, walked away, they start with you. They want to make an example out of you. And Ian's at his core, he's a classic liberal. They're going to start with Dr. Naomi Wolf's. They hate them worse than anyone. Kanye West, he's supposed to be an entertainer that's underneath their umbrella. They're going to start with those people.
You have less defenses. So when it comes to a Robespierre type period, they're going to be looking for people who they view as collaborators who don't have the means to defend themselves. Look at it this way. Spanish Civil War style. You've got people who are living in the neighborhood where there's a conflict between the nationalists, like the Republicans and the communists or whatever the factions were, fascist Republicans, call them whatever you want. And so can they go into the territory that is militarized and fortified by their political opposition? No, they can't. But what about the collaborator who lives down the street? So that's I'm not saying you literally, I'm saying in the context of what this is, you've got there will be someone who is known to have spoken out and said, you guys are wrong, this revolution shouldn't happen. I'm friends with those guys. In the revolutionary period, those are the people that get gulagged and purged. The people like, in this instance, me or Phil, are the ones in the fortified areas they can't get to. I'm speaking figuratively, not literally. So in terms of, can the government come and start arresting people and charging? Well, they are. And there's a reason why when it came to January 6th, there are certain high profile people who are targeted. Yeah. Certain high profile people who are not targeted, and most of the people who were targeted were low profile and no one even knows their names. If the federal government were to indict Alex Jones, hey, hold on. They indicted Owen Schroyer, despite the fact they were both part of the same event. Because Alex Jones would create too big of a backlash.
I could go. That one of the best episodes I've seen. And every episode's good. This is one of the best episodes I've seen in a long time. And maybe it just hit me in the right place at the right time. Let me go over to this, and then I might come back to this. It was so good. I have another clip from it. So we were on X and saw a discussion about the pandemic. So we're not done with the pandemic. We can't be done with the pandemic. We haven't resolved the pandemic. Not done with 2020. Can't be done with 2020. Tucker Carlson had a speech where he's talked about that. Like, if we can't talk about these things, then we're slaves. And so we got into this, and the topic came to, there's still some questions that doctors have about the pandemic. We've still got questions. We're not done yet. And bringing it up, I'm gonna bring it to that era, World War II. We're gonna bring it up. Let me just give you just the tweet here and then some highlights of it because it's so long, but it's almost like an article. Here's the tweet that I saw, and I'll just make it a little bit bigger so you can at least see some of it. So this doctor, Wathix S.L. Diary, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it, talked about this interview that they saw on Rumble. And I think I actually used ChatGPT to highlight it, to break it down, because I don't want to get into the actual debate about cancer and what might have called cancer, because I'm not a doctor. I don't make those claims, and that's not the point of what I'm bringing it up. But there was an interview here, and let me summarize it. Dr. William Mackis is a Canadian oncologist, and this doctor was discussing what, anecdotally, it sounds like what they're seeing as a rise of turbo cancers. And they're in certain people, is what they looks like. It's in certain people that took a certain therapeutic. I'm not in the mood to be talking in code, but I'm fine with it here because that's not the point of what I'm bringing up. So what he was saying is, I'm observing these things, types of cancers: breast, colon, brain, lung, lymphoma, leukemia, and rare forms like, I can't even pronounce this, angiomune-blastic lymphoma. It sounds like a blood thing or something. Surge in crowdfunding campaigns for younger cancer patients. So there's side effects. There's all kinds of stuff that these are questions that like legitimate professionals have. After that quote, somebody replied, and the reply here is what caught my eye.
There are certain high-profile people who are targeted.
I apologize. I always struggle with these, bringing these different quotes and stuff up. Let me go back to my profile. So I'm going to go back to my profile to find the problem that I had. So somebody replied to it and told their story of, here's what happened to me because I started asking questions and stepping out. That goes exactly to what Tim Pool was talking about. And here it is. Kevin Mackernan. I don't know this. I can't independently confirm it, but it's just a story. They said their home address went for sale on Twitter. Hate mail is sent to their employer, shareholders, and board members. Long-winded conspiracy theories about my family were circulated. So these are just common people going at this dude. A pro-vax influencer said he was going to cap me on a Twitter Spaces. He said, when I got into the cannabis field, I thought I might rub some gray market characters the wrong way. Nope, I didn't have any problems there. Sequence a vaccine and you'll see the action of a real cartel. So that's what it said. And then that made me think. That's the power of what they're doing. Tim Scott's basically saying when you have dependence on the government, that's stronger. That's a harder thing to break than slavery, to survive, like successfully survive. And that's what's happened. They took the plantation and now it's not just black people, it's everybody. And I wrote this. The source from this is the Holocaust Encyclopedia. And I wrote this through, when I say write this, I don't write anything. It's through ChatGPT. I just tweaked it, said, I like this, I don't like this, reword this, whatever. In the era leading up to World War II, a significant number of Germans, this is just common German people, actively participated in the removal of Jewish individuals from various sectors of public life, including politics, economics, and culture. This wasn't just a matter of active discrimination. A large portion of the population passively stood by as Jewish people were systematically isolated in workplaces, schools, and communities. Does that sound familiar? The reasons for such behavior were multifaceted. Some were ideologically aligned with Nazi beliefs, while others acted out of fear or self-interest. The latter group often prioritized their own job security and career progression over ethical considerations. This led to a disturbing social dynamic where many severed their friendships and neighborly relations with Jewish individuals. Very similar to what happened. How many people didn't take that thing? You go to a family house or whatever, like, did you take that thing or not? And then maybe they might still let you in and they look at you weird and stay away from you. Oh, it's 6 feet distancing. Same exact thing. Often doing so publicly to avoid any potential backlash. In regions under direct Nazi control, the local populace often assisted in implementing these oppressive policies. They were the arm of it. Some even escalated their involvement to violent acts against Jewish people, further contributing to an atmosphere of terror and persecution. What did Antifa do during 2020 and the whole pandemic? They were out there in the streets arguing that you had to take this thing or put a mask on. This grim period serves as a stark reminder. ChatGPT always uses that phrase, stark. There's certain things that they always use that I got to keep saying, don't use that. I'm tired of you using that. Of the ease of which ordinary people can become enablers of systemic injustice. It forces us to confront the complexities of human behavior and the ethical choices we face, particularly when societal norms are distorted by extremist ideologies. That's exactly what they canceled Gina Carano for. Remember, she pointed that out a long time ago, well before I even knew what was happening. Gina Carano pointed that out. Everything that I put right there is basically a Gina Carano take. And she had that Instagram post. This is what she posted, and people went at her. She posted this here: Jews were beaten in the streets not by Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbors, even by children. Because history is edited, most people today don't realize that to get to the point where Nazi soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews, the government first made their own neighbors hate them simply for being Jews. How is that any different from hating someone for their political views? Believe it or not, she got canceled for that. This is exactly what's happening. We're seeing it, we've seen it, and it's still happening to this day. That's why it's harder to survive. Because you've actually got people enforcing it. Now, you've got people enforcing this whole structure. Just unbelievable. So I'm going to go on here because I only have a little bit of time left. Let me go back and see if I can find it real quick. There was a lot of good moments here. Let me go to the about 45 minutes in this streamcast. They were talking about Rich Barris was talking about what Trump should have done is under the Republic. I think he means under the Republican Party, run an America first ticket of everybody. And he kind of does this with his endorsements, but it should be more official. Here it is. Let me find it real quick. Okay, 45 minutes. Here we go. Back to the Timcast clip.
Commander, but Congress runs the show. It doesn't really matter. And so, like, let's all enjoy life as Americans. That's what we get to do together.
I'm sure you know about voter turnout in the early days of this country, right?
I think it's right.
What the voter turnout percentages were?
I mean, I don't have them off the top of my head.
Like
they were
10%.
Yeah, they were abysmal until Jacksonian democracy, which started to ramp it up.
And then which reached around like 20 some odd percent.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because then when women's suffrage happened, it basically doubled. So women started voting.
What did Jackson do that enticed voters?
One man, one vote. You have
very similar to Trump.
The establishment status quo came at him, and he had to regroup. And this is something Donald Trump still hasn't. At least not yet. I have not seen him learn.
Yep, this is it right here. I needed to see something different running in 2024, and I actually see regression in Donald Trump, but I needed to see something different strategically, and I don't see it. And this is it, right? This is part of what he's missing right here.
He should just run with his own slate of candidates. Look at what is going on right now with this debt fight, with the CR, the continuing resolution. He wants them to defund political lawfare. That's just not going to happen with the current bunch of cowards. I mean, that are in Congress. It's not going to happen. We know who these people are. We know the talent that's in these same districts. Go after them. Trump should be running the America First ticket, not the Republican ticket.
Right.
He should be running the America First ticket. And if you're for me, in Texas 12, you vote for John O'Shea. If you're for me, you vote for Matt Gaetz in Florida 1. If you're for me, that benefited a lot of bad people in 2016. Trump always gave more than he got from the traditional GOP coalition, and he drug a bunch of losers over the finish line who would then stick a knife right in his back. So
see, that's what I've been trying to articulate is like these people, Christopher Wray and others, right in the back, and I don't see anything from him that he even understands what happened. You're bringing Lindsey Graham out on the stage? Nigga, didn't we tell you not to bring him? Don't even say his name. He doesn't get it.
This is something he's got. I know the guy's busy with lawfare. He's trying to run for president.
He doesn't have to run for president. I have his back on the lawfare or whatever that means. It's unconstitutional. It's ridiculous. He didn't do anything wrong. But that doesn't mean you can deal with that. And I know it's frustrating because you have the lawfare that could have taken him out from running for president after they stole 2020. I get it. But that doesn't change. You should have bench strength. Just like last night in the live, very tired, but last night in the live, I said the Libertarian Party didn't have any bench strength. So we were all putting all our chips into Comic Dave Smith. And bro's got a family, and I didn't even listen to why he didn't do it yet. That's why let me not talk about why he didn't do it. But for whatever reason, he didn't want to do it. Run for president. So who's next? You gotta have who's next, wherever you work. This is MAGA. Who's next? So you try to take Trump out with lawfare. Okay, we'll rally, get the lawfare out of there. Who's next to get somebody who's not hangry, but hungry, angry, ready to go to the debate, ready to go to war? Carrie Lake is the obvious one to me. Who's maybe Matt Gaetz, who's hungry to get up on that stage. Well, Donald Trump still fights the lawfare, still is like the godfather of this thing, still very much a mover and shaker. But hey, I'm 77 or whatever old he is. We got Carrie Lake now. That's what should have happened. The lawfare, I'm not trying to say the lawfare they should have won by being able to take him out. What I'm saying is you should have had the strategic moves of, okay, I'm the general, but I got the lieutenant general. I got the next person in line. You could take me out, but that's how they did over the seas with the terrorists. The terrorists are like, okay, you bombed me. The next dude's up. It's kind of like, it doesn't matter. And that's the part that was missing. What a great moment by Rich Barris there.
You're going to repeat 2016 and 17 all over again if you don't do this.
That's excellent. There's another piece, I didn't mark it, so I don't know where it was, where Tim went, and he did the analogy of kind of like why this stuff is happening, and I probably can't even find. Let me see if this is.
For every calorie of energy going into solar, you actually get less out.
I think it's after that. Sorry, I didn't mark the time on this one.
It's not as bad as actually burning a building down.
I'm
highlighting these things to say there is conflict in this country, and people say things like we're not in a civil war, and it's like civil strife. What? I don't care if the government shuts down. Doesn't hurt me. Guess what? Disabled veterans, very scared.
Yes, this is it right here. So I was able to find it, probably about 5 minutes. Tim goes into analogy of what's happening here. Let's start it here.
Is what gives them leverage to leverage one side against the other. So they'll go ahead and they'll say, yes, I promise to do this. But then they'll go and talk behind closed doors to the people that'll give them donations or whatever and say, well, we'll do this and blah, blah, blah. That's what Hillary Clinton came out and said that when she said you have your public position and then your private position. She specifically articulated it just like that. You have a public position and then you have a private position. The duplicity is part of the system. It's we should get term limits for people in Congress and et cetera, et cetera. They're never going to vote for that.
Let me talk about politics of scale.
Yes, this is great stuff here. This is the moment. So Tim's like, let me talk about politics of scale. So you wonder he's going to talk about this. Why are all these crazy things happening? Like they're promoting mutilating healthy children? Like, what is going on?
So people can understand why politicians literally don't care about you, why Hillary Clinton never cared about gay marriage, but claimed to support and then privately said she was opposed to it because it doesn't matter to her. The people who are running the country are simply thinking about how do I maintain maximum power, and they view themselves as the American people are, it's like an ant farm or a chicken coop. I like using the chicken coop analogy. They need more eggs to have an egg fight with people in China, and they don't care that much about the chickens. I mean, they don't want the chickens to die, but when a chicken dies, they're like, well, I'll just get another one, right?
Whatever. So
let me explain something about it so everyone can understand. I can explain it in the best way that I can relative to my business. When you start a show or a coffee shop or anything, and your business is directly associated with a small community, maybe you make bagels and you sell them to the public. You know that you have about 1,000 regular customers, and then you have maybe like 2,000 people who come and go that you'll never see before on average. They'll visit your shop one time, never come back. 3,000 people. You know why Jim didn't show up today. Oh, he comes in every morning, gets an orange juice, and he gets a bagel with cream cheese, and then one day doesn't show up, and you're like, wonder where he is. Next day he shows up, and he's like, I had something happen with the dog. A special circumstance occurred. As your business gets bigger, you start to notice that the weather has profound impacts. Whereas some things probably don't matter to the individual partaking them, it has a tremendous impact in the back end of a larger scale business. That is to say, to what degree does wind...
So what Tim's saying here is these politicians are looking at the country on a macro scale. They couldn't care less who dies. Obviously, you look at people dying all the time. They couldn't care less who's dying. They're looking at it at a macro scale and saying, does this position in the end, does it help me? Does it make sure that I keep people on board with me? In the end, maybe 2% of the people leave the Democrat Party, but does it make more people come out and vote that are? Maybe a few percent leave the Democratic Party, but are we getting more young people? Do young people on college campuses are amped up over this trans thing? And I think Democrats are playing the long game saying, we got the people who usually would be rebels without a cause. So normally these college students would be rebelling against the authority. So there's an opportunity cost if we don't dig into that and double down on trans issues or whatever that's making them BLM that they're amped up about, that we indoctrinated them to and it's really working, if we don't double down on that, then we could have them going against us or going somewhere else. So there's a cost to not doing it. So he's saying, look at the big picture. Who cares if children are sterilizing or children are not, gender mutilating themselves, taking puberty blockers or whatever kind of the madness, taking a graft off their forearm, like just madness. Who cares if the energy is there? That's probably 1% or whatever percent of the people. Let them go ahead and do that stupid stuff. It's helping us with the young generation, and it's helping us convert the children of the conservatives. So they look at this. You can use he's going to bring that up in a second, artificial intelligence to run the numbers and say, if we say this, what does it do for us? They're looking at it from a big picture. That's why this madness is happening.
Winter, does summer, and does rain affect a YouTube channel? Now, most people who are fans of the show watch the show all the time, but one person will simply say, you know what? It's really nice this Friday night. I'm going to go out and hang out with my friends. I'll catch Timcast IRL later. But guess what? This is replicated by 3 to 7% of our viewer base. I cannot address the single individual who doesn't show up for whatever reason. And most people probably think this one person not showing up doesn't matter. But in the back end, when you have a scale of 1 million plus viewers, you actually can see insane trends. So this actually plays to what AI tracks as well.
So AI needs billions. So Tesla, autonomous driving, you need billions upon billions of miles to have enough data to figure out, okay, all these different scenarios, what do we do most of the time? And that's what he's saying. When you're large scale like these politicians are doing, and we see in globalization happening, the weird stuff happening here is happening in the UK, in Scotland, in Canada, that you've got larger data to say, oh, when I do this, this happens. So it seems like madness to us on the micro level, but when they look at it the macro level, it worked in the midterms. So we might go live tonight and talk with Ray Studios. Ray Studios is like, I like the government shutdown. Of course, I like the courage to do that, but we don't know if it's going to be effective or not, because now we're in that, which is a good first step, but the next step is we got to win this media battle. And if you don't win the media battle, then it's good that you had the courage, but at the end of the day, it won't get anywhere. And I think they're analyzing that. They're analyzing, can MAGA win this media battle? That's why they say, Tucker, you're off Fox. You got to go online. You get 100 million views on X. So what? How many views did the Twitter files get? Where'd that get us? Where'd that get anybody? Didn't break anything. They were talking about it in congressional hearings. Who watches congressional hearings? So now it's off. Fox News, you get the old people, you get basically the normies who were just streaming on, going on, turning on their TV, turn on Fox News. That's why you had to run him up out of there. 100 million views on X. 100 million views on X probably doesn't even calculate to 1 million on mainstream as far as reaching normies. So that's what Tim's talking about here.
When it comes to health and fitness, and like you're like when they're looking at blood, like your blood oxygenation, and they can find cancer, we actually see crazy things in our data that you wouldn't notice unless you have millions of viewers, and then you're like, nothing you can do about it. It's hard to get super. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain.
He's doing a good job. Keep going.
But the general idea is we can see weather patterns in viewership, and then I can correlate. Oh, viewership was down in this region. I bet it was sunny out and 65 degrees. And then sure enough, we can see that's right. In Southern California, it was a beautiful day. No, that's obvious. What's that? Viewership was really high today. I bet it rained. And then we check. Yep, rained. More people watch. So when you're in government, relate these things. You are thinking about
So I'll take it from here. What they do in government is he's talking about the weather and how that affects the channel. And I don't have enough viewers to have the data to look at that. You need millions. So what the people controlling the World Economic Forum, why do I have so much concern with Linda Yaccarino being an active member of the World Economic Forum and CEO of Twitter? And these dumbasses see Elon Musk, oh, he fired some people on the election integrity. Who the hell are these? We don't even know who these people are. Why is there even an election integrity committee in the first place? So these people, there's people who are supposed to be dissidents giving him credit for doing that while he hasn't fired the member of the World Economic Forum that's running the CEO, his company as CEO. What they do is, Tim can't control the weather, but the World Economic Forum, through online manipulation and other social engineering, they can see the trends and they see, oh, if we do this, then we get better results here. And they can, to a certain extent, control things. And that's why it's a problem with China getting all the data from TikTok. In not just China, but all these American companies that are, in my opinion, enemies. So you see what they can do. It's like the same analogy as the weather. Oh, it's rainy in Denver today, I'm going to get more viewers. I can't control that. But if the World Economic Forum, not the weather, but can control whatever factor is helping people funnel to them, they'll turn that dial up. And that with the data, that's why there's this battle for data. With the data, you can find, oh, well, maybe I can't turn the dial up on this, but maybe I can on this. So we talked about TikTok. And there's this thing on TikTok where it's like marriage is bad, basically. And we're like, wait a second, is that social engineering? What do you mean marriage is bad? Single life is bad. There's bad pros and cons about everything. So that's it there. I'm going to leave it at that. I got to get to the park with the kids, so I feel better getting that out. Jairus, thank you so much. Appreciate you. I'll try to let you know as soon as possible. Sometimes it's a last second call. Sometimes I've drank my cup of coffee and I'm like, I'm still too tired. Last night I wanted to go even though I was too tired because I wasn't going to talk about Dianne Feinstein, but I'm glad I did because I might talk about it tonight. The topic about California politicians is what I'm taking away from Dianne Feinstein's passing. California is a breeding ground, a conduit to corruption. And I mean, a lot of y'all probably already knew. I never really put the pieces together, but that's where I'm at on that. Thanks a lot for listening. I'm going to peace out here. And everybody have a great Saturday. I'll holler at y'all. Visit the Discord. The link's in the chat. Peace.